Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. I see we have about 43 folks that have joined us so far. We're going to wait about one more minute to see if anyone else trickles in the door, and then we'll get started. All right. Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning. For those of you who I haven't met, my name is Julie Brinkman, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Beyond Pricing. You're joining us today to listen to both Track and Beyond Pricing's view of looking down the road past coronavirus. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're hopeful that you will take a lot of actionable insight from listening to this webinar and be able to reach out to us for additional questions. Before I introduce our host, I just want to bring your attention to the Q&A button down at the bottom. Please feel free to press that button and enter in Q&A. We've reserved about 15 minutes of time at the end of the session to answer your questions. Looking at today's presenters, we have with us Matt Renner. He is the Senior Vice President of Business Development at Track, and Ryan Saylor, our Revenue Management Expert at Beyond Pricing. Today, we're going to focus on three core components. COVID Indicator Roadmap. What this means is the indicators that we're looking at to indicate a recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic and how it's been affecting our industry. We'll then talk about revenue management in this new normal and sales and messaging tactics that you can use to drive conversion with your guests. As I mentioned, we'll spend the last 15 minutes on Q&A, and I'll be facilitating that between Ryan and Matt. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Ryan.
Awesome. Thanks, Julie. Hi, everyone. This is Ryan Saylor with Beyond Pricing. I'm a revenue manager here on our revenue management team. And as Julie mentioned, I'm going to walk us through that roadmap to recovery, including the key indicators we've been taking a look at, that we'll be taking a look at moving forward, and that can also help you identify what's going on in your own markets. And then I'm also going to go over what we're calling revenue management in the new normal. So taking a look at really best practices for when travel demand returns to your market, and how to stay competitive with travel demand returning. So starting with that roadmap of key indicators, if you haven't already been to our coronavirus support page, we have a dedicated page with the URL at the top here, where we're surfacing a lot of the content we're posting in regards to coronavirus, and then also live data for individual markets. So we have data points on that web page for you to dig into. We start by auto-populating a couple of US markets, but feel free to go in and actually add in your own market or take a look at international markets. And some of the three charts that we're looking at on here are some of the most important data that we're looking at to track how COVID-19 is impacting certain vacation rental markets. So a lot of this data we're using in our pricing moving forward, and then also to identify really high-level trends that we're seeing across the board. So I want to start in the bottom left-hand corner and go over that cancellations by cancel date chart. Really, we started looking at when people started canceling reservations, no matter the stay date, to identify travel perception moving forward, and really that initial volume of cancellations that we saw come into most US domestic markets in mid to late March. So you can see a couple examples of that cancellation window that we saw for about a week of when people were making cancellations. That was right around when the news was breaking in the US that the pandemic was going to be severe, and a lot of people in the short term canceled quite a few reservations. This data was very important to look at. It initially just triggered us to looking at people making cancellations, and then we also wanted to take a look at when they were making those cancellations. So I'm going to dig into the two other charts here and some of the data points that we're looking at still with regards to cancellations, but more so than when people were canceling their reservations, we wanted to look at when those reservations were actually going to be fulfilled. So starting pretty high level here, we have a global perspective of just percent of reservations canceled for the first half of 2020. So we've got the US highlighted in that blue line, so you can kind of see for the US what things have looked like thus far. But we also include a couple other countries in here to give you some insight as to how the pandemic has impacted markets around the world. So obviously starting with China, you can see really mid to late January and then all of February into the beginning of March. They saw pretty heavy cancellations come in as the pandemic began. And then moving forward past that, you can see both Italy and Spain as some of the hardest hit European markets. Definitely saw that wave towards the beginning of March and the end of February. And what's important to note here is the extension of cancellations being made into late spring and even into the summer. You can see Italy on that green line really into June, seeing above average cancellation rates. Same thing with Spain, a little bit of Australia and New Zealand as well, all pretty much for the most part above where the US is sitting currently. So with the projection of how the pandemic is going to spread pretty much across the globe, we are expecting cancellation rates to rise here in the US just because of what we've seen happen in both Asian and European markets. This is key data that we've been basically taking a look at to see when cancellations are coming in and actually assessing when people are confident in returning to travel. And here's that same chart broken down into a couple different US markets that we're looking at. And the biggest takeaway from this one when looking at individual markets is really going to be urban versus more drive to classic vacation rental markets. So you can see both Austin and Chicago as pretty much the highest percentage of cancellation rates for the majority of March and April. And also those rates still remaining pretty high for the first half of May and even a little bit into June as well. Once everybody gets to kind of July, we haven't seen that many cancellations above average for most US markets, which is a good sign. But again, a lot of this can change day by day based on extending shelter-in-place restrictions. A lot of local governments have had a lot of impact on these cancellation rates just with either banning vacation rentals, banning certain types of lodging, or closing beaches and things like that as well. So this is something that we're watching moving forward to see really when people are confident in their current reservations on the books and how that perception will change over time moving forward. Again, quick chart here on cancellations, just looking at a couple US markets. We really wanted to pinpoint and show how much change has happened in the past 2 to 3 weeks. Looking at that dotted line for these markets, that was the rate of cancellation by stay date back on March 14th compared to just 2 days ago. So really that spike in cancellations has been very severe and has extended even over what we've seen come in regarding the pandemic over the past 2 to 3 weeks. So alongside that cancellation data, looking at booking pace data is obviously very important as well. So we have really the same markets broken out here. And again, key indicator here is going to be for those urban markets when they were hit with booking pace. So you can see for both Austin and Chicago, really that second week of March was when booking pace started to slow quite a bit. Then if you flip to Florida Panhandle, Hilton Head, Texas Gulf Coast, again, that yellow bar, the week of the 9th, wasn't that low quite yet, but then once everybody got to the second half of March, booking pace really fell flat across the board, especially compared to that initial February average. So this is very important for us to monitor moving forward. Obviously, with lack of people making reservations right now, there's still quite a bit of uncertainty of when people are going to be able to actually travel to these markets, when it's going to be safe. But really monitoring this day by day is important in identifying when people will start to travel again. Another data point that we've been looking at is basically just booked ADRs before and after March 20th for some of these markets. So what we saw with the initial sort of panic in the nation and also the vacation rental industry with cancellations and booking pace slowing down is a lot of people offering heavy discounts in the short term to make up for those cancellations or make up for this low booking pace. And you can see that had the most impact in cities in the US. So again, urban areas being hit hardest the most, but also vacation rental managers reacting fairly quickly in terms of offering discounts for longer lengths of stay or even just general last minute discounts. And you can see that, just increase a little bit as we get into East Coast and interior cities, and then also just US total rates here too. So keep in mind, this is booked ADRs. So this is true reservations of what people are booking. We're also taking a look at forward-looking changes in pricing for each individual market as people react to long-term changes in supply and demand. Another metric that we've been taking a look at, and this one we've surfaced here globally just because we are seeing this across the world right now, is a decrease in booking lead time. So really right now, this is kind of the biggest indicator of consumer confidence in most markets. We've really seen booking lead time decrease quite a bit in markets across the world, indicating that people really aren't confident in booking travel more than a few days out. So there is still so much uncertainty. There's a lot that changes day to day, as we all know. But really, any sort of spike in booking lead time increasing for some of these markets will be a very first indicator of how confident people are in returning to travel. Finally, looking at these last couple charts, again here at that global level, we've noticed an increase in average length of stay across the board. Pretty much all of this data is in response to coronavirus. We've seen a lot of people look for more longer term stays. So people looking to shelter in place somewhere, people who are displaced, people who are being placed in quarantine, but also people looking for remote work solutions. So people who can't go into their office, can't work at home, need to book, a 30 night stay somewhere. Really across the board, we've seen average length of stay pick up as well. So as soon as these return back to kind of more normal levels, we'll know leisure travel could be returning, or those shorter, quicker stays returning alongside lead time increasing. So some key takeaways, obviously these dynamics are varying by region. In the US, we've seen the biggest discrepancies between urban and drive-to markets. That's been very important initially for us to see. But so much of this is actually dependent on what local governments are doing at city, county, and even state level. Obviously, with any restrictions on vacation rentals, that's going to have a huge impact on the data that we're reading, alongside any closures or any restrictions being put in place at a local level, and how the perception is being handled there. So staying on top of what your local government is doing is very, very important, as that will be immediately reflected in the data that we're seeing. Also, in terms of just regions, Europe was hit very hard with cancellations that have now extended into the summer for those heavily hit countries. So we are looking at some of that data to forecast what the US is seeing, but again, taking it day by day as things change. New reservations have also been muted for Europe and have really slowed or come to a halt as well for the United States here over the past couple weeks, as we all know. ADRs have decreased in the short term, but we obviously want to focus on sustainability and looking at increasing those during that recovery period. Now that I've gone over some of those indicators and what we're looking at and what you can look at for your market, I'm going to jump into what we're calling revenue management in the new normal. And really, this is going to be revenue management strategies and practices that you should put in place now to take advantage of them when travel demand starts to return to your market. And I want to start a little bit high level here with kind of revenue management 101, and really just point out that dynamic pricing is not the exact same thing as revenue management. Revenue management actually includes dynamic pricing and includes quite a few other things like channel management, marketing, operations, finance, forecasting. There's a lot that gets tied into revenue management, and dynamic pricing and pricing in general is an important part of that, but your revenue management strategy is a more holistic view and holistic strategy for your entire business. So that being said, there is quite a bit of technology that you can use to help develop and maintain your revenue management strategy. A lot of you are already doing that. If you're using Track, if you're using Beyond Pricing, you're already using technology to help you build that revenue management strategy. And there's really probably nothing new that you need to do as far as revenue management goes, but calling it out and actually labeling as revenue management will help down the road, help you have a cohesive strategy. And finally, on the revenue management front, it's really, really important for there to be an owner of your revenue management strategy. Whether that's you or someone on your team, just have someone be in the know of what's going on with pricing and marketing and promotions and inventory, because if those, if all those different departments aren't talking to each other, you're really losing out on some opportunity to fully optimize your business's revenue. So having strategic ownership of your revenue management strategy inside of your business will help you stay proactive instead of reactive moving forward, which is so important with things changing day to day at this point for most markets, and help you maintain an efficient strategy moving forward as well. So I want to dig into dynamic pricing. Really, dynamic pricing for the vacation rental industry is more important now than ever before. Clearly, with markets evolving day by day, your pricing strategy will need to as well. And dynamic pricing has always done that for individual property managers. So daily changes in supply and demand can be hard to track. Obviously, you have really good internal data. You know your historical data. You know what you have on the books moving forward. You know your type of guests. But what's happening at the macro level for your market? Who's reading that data and interpreting it appropriately for each individual unique property that you're managing? Dynamic pricing tools really are a core competency for any revenue management strategy because of that, and obviously now more than ever. We also want to really caution against lowering prices without using data points. So really just focus on lowering your pricing in the short term and in the long term as needed strategically and on a strategic basis. We want to avoid a race to the bottom. Obviously, in the short term, a lot of people have said, I'm going to cut my rates 50, 75% just because I know demand is down. But have you looked at market data? Have you looked at your competitors? Have you looked at what people are booking elsewhere in the market to make a smart choice on pricing? When travel demand does return, it can be really easy for markets to rebound in occupancy fairly quickly, maybe over a couple weeks or even a couple months. But if you're dropping ADRs 40, 50, 60%, it could take months or even years for those ADRs to return back to normal. So use caution. Obviously, you need to stay competitive in a market, but use as many data points as you can in a dynamic pricing tool if you're using one to make that more efficient. Alongside dynamic pricing, another big part of revenue management for vacation rental managers is channel management. So as we get into this recovery period and identify markets that are seeing people start to book proactively for leisure travel or whatever it might be moving forward, is your dynamic pricing strategy going to be enough? You're going to be competing for a smaller pool of guests that are looking to book in your market. So how can you be as competitive as possible? Really right now, you want to set yourself up for success, and increasing that future potential booking audience is going to be key. If you go back to the same audience you were selling to before, some of them might start booking right away. Some of them might take a couple weeks. They might be a little bit unsure. They might not be as confident in travel. So increasing your potential audience via different channels or even different marketing channels will help you down the road when recovery does return, because it's not going to be the floodgates opening and everything back to normal. It'll be a slow roll as shelter-in-place restrictions are lifted and travel confidence returns. Obviously, a caveat to this is the need to factor in distribution costs. Focus on net rates by channel. Obviously, see who's paying commissions, whether that's being passed on to the guest or the owner for a different channel. No channel is created equal at this point. So definitely look at those costs and pay attention, but know where your business needs to get competitive and aggressive on different channels. And again here, same thing as dynamic pricing, use technology. Work smarter, not harder. If you're able to adopt new technology right now and you have the resources to do so, now is a great time to put in the legwork and get that initial onboarding done. And if you don't have the resources right now to sign up for new technology or onboard new software, look at what you're already using. Are you already using Track and Beyond pricing? Can you learn more about those different systems that will help you down the road? Can you go through and optimize and audit all your listings? Use this time in an efficient manner and be able to set yourself up for success in the future using that technology. So now that I've gone through some of those key indicators and what we're seeing in the industry and in markets around the world, and a little bit of what revenue management might look like in the new normal, I'm going to pass it to Matt from Track to talk a little bit about selling and messaging to deliver bookings moving forward in the future.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that. It's great information. And my name is Matt Renner. I'm the SVP here with Track and TravelNet Solutions. And Track is an enterprise software that helps companies consolidate their tech footprints and implement enterprise workflows in one system. And our whole goal is to help companies improve operational efficiency and financial performance to deliver happier employees, owners, and guests. And for context, right now we have Track installed in about 50 different markets across tens of thousands of rentals. And the other part of our business, TravelNet, is we're an enterprise digital marketing provider for hotels, resorts, and vacation rental companies in about 150 markets. So what we wanted to focus on as a component to the dynamic pricing and revenue management that will be the new normal in the future is, once you have your pricing strategies, what are those messages? What is the messaging that you're going to be delivering to the market that goes with your revenue strategy to deliver bookings in this new normal. So I'm going to ask and kind of give prompts to move the slides along here. So we'll move to the first one. So the first thing to know is that we are in a different time. Consumers have changed very quickly with the shelter in place. Expectations have changed. People are thinking about their next trips, but health and safety are top of mind. And if it's not that health and safety weren't top of mind before, but when traveling, the first thing you probably didn't think about when you planned your last trip was, you know, am I going to have to bring a mask and sanitizing wipes, right? So this is the new normal. Consumers will have those expectations moving forward, and we believe that homes are going to be a good way for travelers to travel with social distance, and delivering the right messaging is going to be key to driving conversion. It's not just going to be price, it's also going to be the messaging so that travelers and consumers feel comfortable booking with your company. So let's talk about some of this messaging. So it starts with visuals on your website and in your marketing. Before COVID, you would see a lot of websites with a lot of people. You would see groups, you'd see parties, events, you know, dancing. And today, when you see that, you probably just think dirty. You think all of these people are spreading germs to each other, they're touching everything. A lot of property managers and companies that manage homes, you know that obviously these are great places for small gatherings to go and get together, but large groups could spread germs and disease and all of these things. You're going to want to avoid this type of communication in the future in the form of visuals. And the future visuals you're going to want to focus on are no people or limited people, no groups. You're not going to want to show big pictures of big groups on your website, small groups, social distancing. Focus on safety first. Obviously, images that implore peace, social distance, instead of when you're looking at copy as you're putting in copy to align with photos, maybe instead of just saying pool, say private pool, things that describe the spaces that are available for your guests. This will be critical in reducing anxiety during the booking process. And some do's and don'ts around this marketing messaging. So do publish cleaning and sanitization checklists. If you don't have one, we encourage you to create one. You can create one in Track. If you're using Track and you're using the housekeeping work orders, you can create custom checklists in the work orders and then publish those checklists. Let people know the actions that you're taking to ensure a safe vacation experience for them and their family. Promote the benefits of a private residence. It's okay to talk about the benefits without talking about the negatives. You know, focus on the positives of a private residence type experience or vacation home experience. Show photos of your accommodations with only small groups of people if you are going to show people at all. Sometimes it might be better just to show the space. There was some debate about that before. You know, marketing would go back and forth with, do we show people, do we not show people? I think it's probably going to be safer to just show the space in the future, and then clearly share your cancellation policy. Don't hide it. Don't hide behind a poor one. If you have taken the time to put in a good cancellation policy that benefits your customers, make sure you promote that. People will need to know that as part of their decision making. Don't promote large groups. Don't promote large events. Even if large events are going in your area, let those events promote themselves to drive demand for occupancy in your region, but you don't specifically have to promote those events, show pictures of those large events. You can maybe reference them, you can maybe bid on them, things of that nature, but reduce promoting large events. Don't hide your cancellation policy, bring it front and center, and don't show images of large busy areas and gathering people. Obviously, you can see that we're kind of driving hard on that, but there's a lot of research that's going on behind the scenes with big ad firms, and this is going to be a no-no moving forward. So let's talk about some guest communications once the market is ready. You want to make sure that you're obviously putting out the right messaging at the right time. You don't want to be too soon. I think, we're going to be letting our customers know when we think the time is right. Time's not quite right now, but soon it will be. And here's just some concepts that you can do. One, you can review your database and export past guests that do not have future bookings. If you're using Track, you can do this within the Track email marketing platform. This becomes an instant lead list. As you review that and you look at your past guests, you can segment that data and say, okay, here are people that are familiar with our business. They know our best practices, and you can reach out to those people via a personalized email. That might not seem scalable, but at this time, reaching out with a personalized email, if you're the ownership group or the owners or your marketing people, that gives it that personalized feel, that it's not just a standard e-blast going out. And in that email, you're going to want to ensure that there's a safe environment for their next vacation. Remind them of the amenities of the unit that they stayed in. Remind them of the privacy of the beach. You might offer a special price just for those particular guests, depending on how you're pacing. A personalized phone call will go a long way. Picking up the phone and calling someone, having that human touch can be a great way to differentiate yourself from others that are not doing that. We recommend creating a pre-made script. We'll be releasing a script for our customers. You can plug these leads or these guests into leads into Track if you're using that software, and use it to see the conversion rates of your team. You might do a contest with your team to see who can, get a hold of the most people and have the most conversations, but really leverage your past customer database as you're re-entering the market to go back to people who are familiar with you and make it personalized. Update your website photography and copy to ensure the proper communication tactics. You don't want to sound tone deaf. And then update your listing pages on your website. Each one of your properties, as a consumer is looking at that, they're going to be reading through the amenities. They're going to be reading through the normal things, but publishing either a slide within your photo player with your cleaning checklist, or further down the page within the content with your cleaning checklist. With visuals that make it easy to see that you're taking care of those properties will be a good way to reinsure that traveler as they're thinking about making a booking with you. So what about fly-to destinations? As we hear a lot of people are talking about how the domestic drive-to destinations will be the first ones to bounce back. Specifically, I think we're talking to more of a U.S.-based crowd on this particular one, but on this particular webinar. But for fly-to destinations, for example, we have a lot of clients in Hawaii. What about the messaging and marketing for those destinations? Because you're relying on, obviously, airlines to get people there, and you're relying on people feeling comfortable enough to go into an airport with a lot of people, to hop on an airplane, which is a tiny tube flying in the sky with a lot of people. So some things to think about here. And I'm not an airline expert, but historically we have seen airports and airlines have been very quick to adopt to very strict policies to ensure safety of guests. Look back to 9/11, the changes that were made there. So expect to see major changes. If you go do any research on what's going on in China and the airports, from the little bit that you can see, there's very strict changes that are already being done in airports to ensure the people are going through there are healthy, and making sure that they're not putting people that are flying at risk. So hopefully that same pattern happens here. I think it will. It's too big of an industry not to. There's going to be aggressive PR and marketing around the safety of air travel, but even with that, it could take longer to bounce back. One thing to think about is watch what the airlines are doing, watch what air travel is doing, and you could maybe take a lead, take their lead in terms of tone of communication. What are the words they're using? How are they encouraging travelers that it's safe when it is safe, of course, and take that lead. A couple things you could do. There's a lot of people that are working from home that are within drive distance of destinations. I know our group at Track and TravelNet, we've talked about when this is all over, all gathering, renting a big house or a couple of houses at a resort here in Brainerd, which is close to the Twin Cities, to go do corporate retreats, kind of workations, get away, bring the family, let the family go and play at the beach while we get together and kind of regroup and start building the future. These workations, if you will, corporate retreats, things of that nature could be a good way to get some local business, even if you're a fly-to market. And if you're a drive-to market, it's a good option as well to promote that. You might do a special rate for in-market or close market guests in Hawaii. Some of our clients are doing segmented targeted marketing for the Kama'aina to give special rates for people that live there. Specifically, hotels and things of that nature are giving special rates up until the point where they close down. But as they open up again, that can be a strategy that you use for in-market or close guests, kind of that quick little getaway. And then ultimately use CRM data for segmentation in your marketing. If you don't have a CRM, certainly it's worth investing for the future, because this is a way for you to gather customer data, use your own rich customer data for better marketing and segmentation. So how can PMS and CRM tech help? So again, along the lines of using data from your CRM to better target market your efforts. For example, within Google and Facebook, if you're doing advertising there, you can pull an email list of your customers out of your database, upload those lists to create targeted audiences or lookalike audiences within those channels. So as you're doing your ads, Google and Facebook are using their AI platforms to find similar customers or similar demographics to better position your advertising efforts to people that have stayed with you in the past. You can, with Track, you can allow your agents to work remotely and continue to deliver that high level of service, even if you're, we might be living in a new normal where people want to work from home more than they work from the office. Using a tech like a Pulse, which allows you a cloud-based phone system, can allow your agents to work remotely and still maintain those high levels of service, and you can still manage their efforts. Use geo-marketing insights to see which markets are inquiring early in booking to adjust for geo-targeting of ads. For example, if you notice that you're early on, once the market starts to come back, and let's say that you're in Destin and all of a sudden you're getting a big spike from Houston, that'll allow you to dig into that data to find out why are they coming back sooner, what kind of a messaging can you personalize towards Houston within your ads, so that you're reaching an audience that's ready to go ahead and consume what you're selling. Cleaning checklists, you can do that in our software, you could do that in Breezeway, you could do that in a number of other softwares, but we recommend creating cleaning checklists and showing your owners and showing your guests that you are following these very strict processes and procedures to ensure the cleanliness of their homes. Just sending someone to a home and having them do a clean and having no support around ensuring what was done will put you at a disadvantage in the future. You need to be able to show and display that data. Send automated messages to guests prior to check-in once the cleaning sanitation has been done. This is a good idea. It's just a helpful touch point that will give your guests a feeling of confidence that you have done and taken care of their rental, so that when they show up, they don't have to worry about it. If you're using Track, you can build out automated emails and text messages to deliver this kind of communication. And using direct channels with direct connections through your PMS software where there's not a third-party connection fee, and using derivative rates can increase the return or that net rate that you're getting from the channel. So that means basically going direct to the channel, marking up the rate and passing along some of that cost can decrease your distribution costs as you try to re-enter the market. So those were some ideas of how to market as a message to drive conversion as the market comes back. Final takeaways from this overall webinar is to know the indicators of change. Travel demand will slowly return, some places faster than others. Obviously, we're monitoring the drive to versus the fly to. Lower prices strategically. Don't just do drop all the rates. Obviously, you want to be strategic about it and not too jumpy or knee jerk. Obviously, this is very easy to do. Track has a partnership with Beyond Pricing, and our customers I know are thinking about this, or strategizing about this. I encourage you to get in touch either with your account manager at Track or with your account manager at Beyond Pricing to talk about this strategy if you don't have a strategy. Use proper messaging and marketing when the time is right. You don't want to be too early, but you don't want to be too late. Use technology to expand your reach and ensure operational execution. Again, housekeeping, segments in marketing, things of that nature. And channel managers and digital marketing is a great way to look at, I guess, as you're making your relaunch strategy, considering both of those is going to be an important part of that. So I think what we're going to do is after this is wrapped up, which I'm just wrapping it up, we're now going to open it up for questions, and the video of this will be available. We'll be uploading it to YouTube so everyone can see it. And now I think we're going to be passing it over to Julie for Q&A. At least that's the direction I'm getting. So thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Ryan. A lot of great information and a lot of actionable insights that we can take as property managers in our own business. I haven't received any questions so far, so while we wait to see if anyone wants to post any, maybe I'll just ask you, Ryan. So, you mentioned some of those indicators of change that we should be on the lookout for: cancellations, reservations, ADRs. If I'm, I can obviously know my own bookings, my own reservations, my own cancellations. Where should I be looking to understand market changes so that I understand my hyper-local or broader regional market as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. There's, a couple different ways to go about it. On the Beyond Pricing coronavirus support page that we've got the URL in this webinar, we're servicing a lot of that market data. But you can get quite a bit more if you actually just connect your account right to Beyond Pricing and actually dig into your market data with where all your properties are. The benefit of that is actually if you're in a couple different markets, and really you could be, even if you think you're in one, we look at quite a few hyper-local areas to get good market level data. If you connect your account, just your Track account or any account directly to Beyond Pricing, you'll have access to all that in kind of an easier fashion than that coronavirus support page to keep up with those market level insights. That'll help you alongside your own internal data as well.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, and
sorry, go ahead, Matt.
And also Julie, we of course love Beyond's data, and our customers really benefit from that. Also, any Track customer that is active with us, you can get key data for free right now. So you can sign up for that platform as well. It's Key Data Dashboard, and get that for free with your Track subscription. Just let people know.
Great, thank you. Yeah, sounds like a couple of really good resources to make sure we're staying on top of those quickly changing market dynamics. Matt, we got one question from our audience. I'd like to ask you, when will we know it's a good time to remarket? Obviously, right now, it's a little bit sensitive with so much going on related to the pandemic. I'd love your sense to know, when is that sort of time that we're going to understand it's a good time to get out there and start to market ourselves again?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, none of us have ever been through, I don't think, a shelter-in-place order, which is happening in the cities that are most of the feeder markets that we get our business from. So I don't want to claim that I'm an expert in post-shelter-in-place marketing timing. I think we're all going to learn from this for sure. But I think as we're starting to see the curve flatten, we're hearing that a lot. As we start to see that, I think what we're going to start to see in Google, and this is just my prediction, is I think we're going to start seeing search volume going up. There's a lot of cooped up families that are thinking about what they're going to do. All you have to go to is Facebook and see all the people posting pictures of where they were last year around this time. And so people are thinking about it. They're thinking about traveling. I think starting to make adjustments right now to maybe some of the visuals on your website, putting the things in place like the checklists and the communication on your own site are things that you can do right now, maybe making adjustments to triggers or communication within your software for when people start to make bookings. In terms of pouring gas on the fire, I think it's going to be aligned with, you have to work with your digital agency to understand what's the search volume. Is the search volume coming back? Are there more queries happening in your booking engine? And if you're starting to see that in your own data and you're starting to see the market trends pick up in terms of Google trends, then that's probably an indication that our people are starting to come out of it. And my guess is that will align with the curve flattening. That's just a guess.
Well, I mean, any guess is good at this point. So really appreciate your insight there. You know, Ryan, they're saying, midterm is the new short term these days. So I'd love your advice. How can I get as many midterm bookings as possible?
Yeah, great question. There are quite a few ways to go about it, and it all goes back to really being smart about where you're taking your pricing right now. We have seen a couple good success cases with implementing more aggressive length of stay discounts to, again, kind of jump on the bandwagon with the larger increase in average length of stay, so discounting further to entice those bookings. Same thing with any sort of automatic last minute discount. Within Beyond Pricing, you can customize, a rolling last minute discount, which is pretty ideal right now because we are taking it day by day. And also I've seen a lot of property managers successfully go through and audit all their listings, and specifically for more urban areas kind of highlight, hey, this would be a great remote workspace, or, we have great Wi-Fi here right in the title or something like that. So flipping your marketing and messaging alongside the needs of what people are actually searching for booking wise right now can definitely help, alongside being smart with adjusting your pricing and setting yourself up for success here in that midterm period.
Great advice. As we look to potentially, increase our occupancy with these midterm bookings and market a little bit differently than we have historically, I'd love either one of you, Matt or Ryan, what are your thoughts on how we will continue to ensure that we're able to retain our owners in this really, volatile environment?
Yeah, I can jump in here. So one thing that I know we're thinking a lot about, and we're talking to some of our customers about, is just being proactive about reaching out to owners and having communication. Right now, you could be facing situations where, depending on the company, you might have owners that went out and maybe they had one successful Airbnb and they went and leased a bunch of condos or bought a bunch of property, and all of a sudden they're facing mortgage payments with uncertainty. You could be dealing with companies that, like North Carolina, they go through hurricanes every year. They're used to disruption. So it's really understanding who are your owners, what is their makeup, what is their financial makeup, and reaching out to them, just like we're reaching out to our customers to talk about, what your plans are for relaunch, what your strategies are, how they're financially positioned. Because I think if you don't communicate, then you won't really know what's going on with them. The more you communicate, the more you'll know. Then you can come up with plans based on the feedback that you're getting and based on your business objectives.
That makes sense. Matt, you've been mentioning cleaning checklists, and it looks like that the industry is also mentioning leaving properties empty for a day or two in between stays. Is that something that you would also recommend, just to be in an overabundance of caution?
I don't think leaving properties open really will solve the problem. The concept that they're just open and that will deliver a clean, not infected or unsanitized home will, alleviate people's fears. I think having very strong and I want to say compliance with cleaning checklists, inspections is the best thing you can do. I don't, leaving properties open, I guess it sounds a little gimmicky to me. I think just executing really well is probably the most important thing that you can do from a cleaning perspective. And you have to have technology do that. You can't rely on a cleaner to go in there and just say it's been done. It has to be shown that it's been done.
Sure, that makes sense. So I'll ask one last question, Matt. This one's for you, and then we will wrap up. And as Matt mentioned, we'll be distributing this link and to the YouTube video through both the Track and Beyond Pricing blog and newsletter. So Matt, last question. What would you say is the ideal cancellation policy in making guests feel comfortable?
Wow, that's a good question. I think that there's not one ideal. I think each market is going to be different. And I'm not saying that to get out of answering the question, but I think each market needs to treat their market based on the feedback that they're getting from customers. Obviously, there's benefits to opening up your cancellation in terms of making it closer to the stay so people feel confident in booking, but that also leaves you open. So I don't think I can give the perfect example of what works, but certainly I'd love to see examples when you post this, maybe either in the YouTube notes or on our blog or Facebook page or something like that, or beyond, to see what companies are actually doing so that maybe people could discuss amongst themselves what's working best.
I think that's a great idea. Learning from each other in times like this can really help accelerate our, overall growth as an industry. So with that, I just want to thank our, oh, excuse me. Sorry, Matt.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's a great idea. I'd love to, if you're listening and you're using a cancellation policy that's working really well, I encourage you to share it, and let's see what people come up with.
Well, I just want to extend a thank you to our presenters today. It was incredibly informative, both Matt and Ryan. Thank you for your time. And thanks to all of you for joining us. As we mentioned, we'll be sending the link out immediately following this, and we look forward to talking in the near future. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.